Well, greetings everyone, and welcome to a special online event today called Intuitive Healing Through Your Crown Chakra, clearing energetic blocks to access your divine guidance, healing gifts, and true abundance. My name is Stephen Dinan. I'm the founder and CEO of the Shift Network, and I'm really delighted to be with you here today, learning right alongside with you from a truly remarkable intuitive energy healer, speaker, teacher, and author. Her name is Wendy Rosa, and her teachings invite spiritual seekers to develop their intuition, clear their blocks, and experience a very profound level of personal transformation. And she's been doing this work through the School of Intuitive Studies and the Intuitive Healer Training Program. She's done several programs for Mind Valley. She's a contributing author to the best-selling book, Bouncing Back with Wayne Dyer and Brian Tracy. And her most recent book is Expanding Your Heart. So today we're really going to be going into a next level of intuitive healing teachings and practices. So for those of you who are new, just should be able to follow along, but we're also going to be going into some pretty advanced and interesting terrain. So welcome, Wendy.
Thank you so much, Stephen. Happy to be here.
Great. Well, we just have this hour with Wendy, and I want to say right up front that we'll get as much value as we can, but we also have a chance to go much deeper in an upcoming 16-week training. Wendy's agreed to craft some of her most important teachings and practices in this training. We'll talk about it towards the end today. It's called The Next Level of Intuitive Healing. So stay tuned for that. Well, Wendy, let's begin a bit with your journey. I always find it helps to people know a little bit about, who you are and what brought you to doing this advanced intuitive healing work.
Yes. So I grew up in a big Italian Catholic family on the East Coast. I was the oldest girl in a family of 8 kids. And I know now I was highly sensitive, very intuitive as a child. And I didn't know that then. I actually thought there was something wrong with me. And I spent many years growing up absorbing everything that was going on around me and having a very difficult time finding myself, being in my body, having boundaries. And by the time I was 8 or 9, I puffed up. I gained a lot of what I know is emotional weight. And then panic attacks and anxiety started to happen. And then all the way through my high school years, I was having nervous breakdowns and panic. And by the time I hit my sophomore year in college, I had a full-blown panic attack and was hospitalized. And all the while, I knew that there was something, I knew I was overwhelmed. I needed someone to talk to. I needed someone to understand what was going on for me. And looking back, knowing what I know now, I was a very sensitive being, which means highly sensitive people or beings have 4 aspects of intuition. They see, hear, feel, and know. And so I had all 4 of them, and that meant that I was taking in too much information on a lot of levels in my energy body all at the same time. And then that culminated to a nervous breakdown and not getting nurturing or context around what was happening for me. And then by the time I was in my early 20s, I eventually, through a series of events, I found my healing teacher who identified what I had and said, you really have this untapped gift. And if you could harness it and work with it and develop it, you can really, really help people. And so I studied with her for a couple of years, and it was a combination of developing my intuition and healing my wounds and blocks. And then over time, I just started to, I ended up leaving. She left the town I was living in, and I was in Boulder, Colorado at the time. And I continued to do the work on my own, and I was giving sessions, and I was a musician at the time. I was a singer-songwriter. So I would tour around the country and play music and exchange that for energy healing sessions. Usually if there's like places to stay or friends, do trade. And then by the time I was 30, I had about 500 clients, all from word of mouth. I mean, Facebook didn't exist back then. Social media didn't exist. I just network grew, and people were interested in learning this work, how to do it. And so I started to teach. And then, 12 years later, here I am teaching and running the School of Intuitive Studies.
Hmm. Well, it's definitely sobering, like what the impact that it can have if you're not aware of like these sensitivities and the impact you, like you're saying, with a panic attack and a lot of other symptoms of that, that, that we are picking up a lot of information all the time. So learning this information isn't just a nice to have. For a lot of people, it's really necessary to be able to navigate having some natural gifts in that arena. So let's talk about today. So we wanted to specifically focus in on an area that often gets neglected in intuitive work. Is like, so often we feel like we're caught up. A lot of our drama of day-to-day life is caught up in our lower chakras and all of the complexity there. And so we're talking more about the crown chakra, which in many ways people are like, oh yeah, I'll get to that someday, but it doesn't feel perhaps as relevant to where they're at right at the moment. So maybe share a little bit why, first of all, it's important that we do this work with the crown chakra and open to some higher sources for the healing and transformation we need in the moment.
Yeah. So the crown chakra is the power center at the crown of our head, and it opens up to divine flow and it's our gateway to God, to source, to flow. And I don't necessarily promote jumping to the crown chakra for energy healing off the bat. In fact, I always recommend that we work on the root chakra or being in the body first. But a lot of personal process and emotional healing and transformation, personal transformation, is a process of looking at what is carried in the first three chakras of the body, which we may not think that they are, but when we talk about relationships, or we talk about trust, or we talk about bonding and grounding, our family of origin, our personal power, that's all lower chakra stuff. And we can, in life, and especially in our personal process, we can recycle that process over and over and over again. So if you've been in the situation where you've been processing your wounds, or you're working through patterns and you notice they still come up and they still come up, then we start to look at what's going on in your spiritual connection. Is the crown chakra open? Is spirit, grace, the divine engaged in the personal process? Because if faith isn't open, and it's not, then we stay working extra hard in the lower body and in our ego. Essentially, we're processing our wounds through our ego instead of processing the wounds through spirit or through our spiritual connection.
So it sounds like what's best is you're kind of working on both ends of the spectrum at the same time, kind of going back and forth rather than just one or the other.
Yes, and that's a perfect way of saying it, and a perfect distinction is I am a firm believer of, if we're working on the upper chakras, we're also staying very grounded in the lower body. Because naturally the upper chakras will start to open up, because they open up as we feel safe. And as we ground into the lower body and we're working on, root chakra safety and connection to this earth, our energy system can relax, our organs can come into balance, the mind will start to unwind and come to stillness, the heart will relax, and at that point, the upper chakras start to awaken.
Mm-hmm. And I imagine it's also true that if you just focus on the lower chakras, you might be missing big pieces of the puzzle that might not otherwise move.
Right, exactly. It's the whole system. It works together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Good. Well, let's talk. So for folks who are not as familiar with the crown chakra, maybe if you can talk a little bit about what its function is in our energy system and how it relates to certain ways that we're held back or blocked.
Yeah, so the crown chakra it's our opening, our gateway, and our pipeline to divine source. And that infinite source is its love, its abundance, it is high possibility, realm of possibility, it's all-knowing, it's spiritual grace, it's prayer, it's divine communication, and it's nourishment. It's our sourcing to our energy system. And we have this beautiful pillar of light that runs through our entire body. And the crown chakra opens up like a funnel at the top of our head, and we receive that light in through the top of our head, and it sources the central pillar as well as the rest of the chakras and the body. So if we have been in this process where I'm I'm working with issues around lack or under earning, or I'm working with issues around relationships and not trusting, or I'm, repeating an abandonment cycle over and over again. I'm working with these issues. What happens here is that when we start to work on it from the perspective of psychology, which is good, it's always good. I'm a big fan of therapy, in that we can go back into the story and talk through and make conscious connection to what's going on in our history that might have left imprints in the body. But here's what's interesting about energy work and why we go to the next level of it, is that some of our blocks in these areas, or any area, don't actually originate in this lifetime. They actually are marks and imprints that our soul carries from lifetime into lifetime. And we come into this lifetime and we are carrying that energy, or that mark. We can call it a karmic imprint. We can also call it a contract, or even a soul agreement. They're energies that we carry, imprints that we carry into this body and into this life. And we are either creating or recreating, or we're here to clear the karma of that particular imprint. But we can't always do it through the mind. We have to go through another way. And that other way is opening the heart and understanding the process of energy healing through the spiritual heart. It's also about understanding the karma and clearing through higher awareness, which is the upper third eye chakra, the sixth chakra. And it's about faith. It's about opening up to spirit and the divine, and understanding that our soul is part of the divine, and that our soul carries with it imprints and karma that needs to clear. But in order to do that, we have to be in union or in alignment with divine source. If my crown chakra is closed down, but here I am trying to clear my blocks in my body, I'm going to be fatiguing myself. I'm going to be frustrated. I'm going to hit limitations because I don't believe. I don't have faith. I don't have an opening fully to divine source satiating my being. So the value of the crown chakra being opened is that it's starting to differentiate personal healing, personal growth, personal transformation here on the human plane, to actually going through a whole body transformation, which includes, again, being open at the crown chakra area of the body while being deeply grounded in ourselves, in our body.
The image comes when you're talking about this openness. It's like pipes of water. It's like if you have got a very small pipe of water, it's like it can't possibly be abundant because you just got this little trickle coming through. Yes. But it's like opening the crown. You're getting a bigger pipe, and then therefore you're going to have access to a lot more power, a lot more intuition, a lot more abundance, a lot more of love, of everything. And it's interesting what you were saying about past lives. There's these imprints. And so you basically you're in a way, we're coming in with an inherited pattern. It might be constricted in certain ways and blocked in other ways. And so we're kind of having to rotor-root through some of those pipes in order to open them back up again.
Yes. And part of it is it's of our times to be doing this work. We are also healing the wounds from the lineage, from family that's been passing on old beliefs about what was going on for them in their era, get carried into the cells of our being. And it's our work to evolve not just our own personal consciousness, but the consciousness of the planet, which means that we're healing and clearing, lineage wounds and, lack and fears from centuries back that we might carry in our body without even realizing it. So it's this, we are clearing our wounds is clearing the family lineage, but also helping raise consciousness.
There was a Native American teacher who said something. It's like we incarnate to address the unresolved issues of our ancestors. And I thought it was a succinct way of saying exactly what you're saying, is that we're the opportunity to heal these patterns, both for ourselves and collectively.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit more about how. So, you mentioned grounding. So how do we work with the crown chakra in a grounded way versus kind of spinning off in a into the ethers?
Yeah. So for one, the root, so I always recommend grounding first in the lower body, and the root chakra in particular at the base of the tailbone. That's our power center for trust. And that's trust on this planet, trust in humanity, trust in the human, the tangible, what we see on this earth. The crown chakra is about faith. It's about opening up to the unseen, the higher knowing, the unknown, but the divine, all knowing. So it's about opening up to being essentially provided for on that divine level, while the root chakra is about grounding into trust in the lower body and in the earth. And so what I recommend is that we do practice a grounding cord from the root chakra or the sides of the hips. It's like a beam that goes from the sides of the hips and low belly, and it goes down deep into the center of the earth. And that we visualize that grounding cord extending into the earth in order for the root chakra to start to relax and perhaps open up a little bit more, to allow more grace to flow in that area of the body. And then from there, as we can sit, like the soul can sit more powerfully in the body, then the crown chakra, we can envision it opening up. But here's what's interesting about the consciousness in the body is that we typically live very forward in our energy system. We typically live in the front of the frontal lobe of the brain, the front of the heart, and sometimes the front of the gut area, and the front of our throats. So we tend to live here because we have to have an affect in the world. We have to be out there in the world projecting self on some level. That's just how we accomplish. And we need that part of ourselves. But the backside of the body, and this is what the crown chakra helps us access, is that we're not just engaging flow through what we see here in the front of the body. It's also about accessing the back channels of the body. And that's the yin, that's the receptivity, that's the leaning back into grace in the backside of our body to receive. Here we offer and we give. Back here we receive in through the divine. And so what I recommend for accessing for crown chakra activation, but also for sort of grounded connection throughout the whole body, is that we lean back into this waterfall of light that is flowing through the crown of the head. And as we lean back into it, we're allowing ourselves to fill up and receive. And what that starts to do is it starts to take us out of the frontal lobe of the brain where we are trying to problem solve. Mm-hmm. Sometimes what we can't ever solve. It's not, we can't always problem solve every issue, because sometimes it's not up to us to fix things. Sometimes it's an allowance. Allow this to see this process through. So when we start to come back into the back body, we are engaging our spirit. We're engaging higher self and higher knowing. And we're working on, at that point, we're starting to work on, whether we realize this or not, we're working on working things out between us and the divine. It's like, if I can't fix this out here, I can't make this person behave any differently, I can't make them behave the way I want them to behave, so I'm okay. I'm going to work it out between myself and spirit. I'm going to lean back in and pray. I'm going to lean back in to connect. And when we start to engage that, then we're activating the back sides of the chakras. And through the back sides of the chakras, this is where we start to, in the back of the heart, we start to feel calling. In the back of the throat, we start to deeply and intuitively listen, hearing guidance. In the back of the third eye center, we start to receive higher knowing and intuition. And this is where we start to activate the intuitive body and the senses in the body. And it's by this act of opening and being conscious to to the flow in the back body, more so than the consciousness being so present in the front of the chakra system.
That's a really fascinating distinction. I haven't really heard that, why that's so important to open up the back body. And it makes a lot of sense when you see this kind of central channel that the balance actually creates greater health in the system.
Hmm.
So when you do that, when you're kind of being more in your back body, being more receptive, do you then have to tune in with particular wound patterns or challenges? Let's say that there's like you brought up financial abundance earlier. So as you've got some real constriction around money. So do you then surface that, or is it just kind of like start to work through your system naturally because you're bringing more awareness to a different circuitry?
Our triggers tell us a lot. When we usually life presents something, it presents a trigger, a situation that might cycle back up. If it's like, oh no, there's, my bank account's at zero again. I didn't want to be back here, and here I am. We start to have an emotional response to what might be a trigger. And I'm just using that as an example. So what we can do at this point is breathe into the response in the body and where that lives in the body. And sometimes it's lower. Sometimes it is the gut, or sometimes it is the heart. But we start to breathe into where that feeling is. And most of the time, the feeling isn't necessarily about money per se. It's about it's about the energy underneath money, or the emotional relationship with money. So here I am back to feeling not good enough, not enough, angry, frustrated, etc. So I start to breathe through my response and how I'm feeling. And then what I'm going to do, and this is just bringing in this idea of the crown chakra opening up, is I'm staying connected to the feeling in my body, which keeps me in my body. But I'm also going to open up to higher knowing, or to prayer and to grace. And I'm going to start allowing this light to move through the subtle layers of my body, because the deeper roots of this pattern are in places in my energy system, in my soul, that I'm not consciously aware of. So what I have to do is not go in through the mind, but I have to go in through the heart, and trust and faith, and a little guided imagery for myself. So I'm now going to go into the subconscious by opening up a prayer channel and saying, I pray for the patterns that I'm holding and carrying around this particular issue and wound. I pray for healing. I pray for release. I pray for them to be dissolved from my being. And I start to unwind and keep my breath moving to where I feel caught in my body, and allow that flow of grace to start to move through that area of the body to unwind it. And I breathe. I stay with my conscious breath to that area of the body until I start to feel it shift. And so this is just a kind of a mini example, but there's more to the process. But this is a good example of how we would start to identify bringing in energy healing, but also that spiritual cleansing and release.
I love the way you describe that is just the welcoming in grace. And I think prayer practices have sometimes gotten short shrift in modern times too, in terms of, recognize the power of consciously invoking specific requests for cleansing, for healing. So I think that's really great.
I think prayer is a charged word. It's a charged word, but it's divine communication. Really what
that's
it
a great reframing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so that's kind of like this two-way process, divine communication. It's like we're making requests and inviting, but then there's also, it's something you've also share a lot and teach a lot about, is this higher guidance and intuition. So it's like, how do we start to begin to discern when we're getting specific, clear guidance from our higher self or potentially other beings? I know you work with angels. There's a lot of different beings you can work with.
Yeah. So there's like many, I could go on this topic, but I'm going to be concise. So I have made in my own being, and I recommend this for people, I've made a very clear distinction in that I connect to God only, and whatever word resonates for you, the divine, the light, whatever word, love, that the word God resonates for me, because that's been in my practice. It's the highest purified vibration for me. Choose the word what works for you, but the essence here is that you are claiming your space. I am in the divinity of light. I am in the divinity of consciousness. I am allowing myself to be in that vibration, and you simply declare that. The guidance is an activation of the back channels of the body, and some people will come into this world with a strong throat chakra, for example. Some people will come into this world with strong third eye or strong heart. They just will have an innate amount of prana, life force energy, maneuvering through that area of the body, which might make guidance more accessible for them. Now, that doesn't mean people can't access guidance, because what happens is, as I mentioned earlier, when we start to live too far forward in the energy system, we actually close off the backside of the throat and the heart and the crown. We close off the backside of all the chakras. When we close off the backside and we're not engaging trust, faith, prayer, leaning back in, the front sides overexpose and they get bigger in order to compensate. And they'll do that. And when they do, we can tend to live again too far in ego or too far forward. This starts to activate more of the mind. So the mind is, yes, it's the brain, but the mind is also the noise in the body. It's the imprints in the body. It's the consciousness we carry in our body that has a lot to do with what we carry in the front side of us. And we also have this deeper subconscious. It's through the subconscious or the back body that we connect to our center, our higher self. Our higher self is also our soul, and spirit guides and angels. And they exist. They are part of the divine realm. Spirit guides and angels are. And there's a distinction between the two, which I'll have to go into at another time. But spirit guides and angels are our protectors and our guides. And in order for us to connect to spirit guides and angels, we also need to have faith in self, faith in our own higher guidance. We have to be able to know that we carry that wisdom in our being and that we are divine. Connecting to spirit guides and angels is a mirror of vibration. So if I am carrying illuminance inside myself, if I've cleared the blocks of doubt and faith, or doubt and blocks to faith inside myself, then I replace that area of my being with light. At that point, awakening happens within me and I start to illuminate in those areas of my body with more light, which then becomes a match for the spirit guides and angels. And that's when somebody is able to really connect to spirit guides and angels. And as I mentioned a couple minutes ago, some people have that already innately. They come into the world with it. Others, I had to develop it myself. I mean, that didn't happen. Some parts of clairaudience happened for me, but some I had to develop over time. And that was a result of me clearing my blocks in certain areas of my body for me to connect to spirit guides and angels.
Really fascinating explanations. I feel like you've got such a clarity and precision of how you're understanding these things. So let's bring this into an area that, so one of the things we described on the page for today is that how to lift yourself out of a repetitive healing cycle so you can fully heal. So a lot of times people just, these grooves run deep. They might have many lifetimes of karma behind them. And it's like, how do we really get in there and help to shift some of these really deep repeating patterns that we get into?
Yeah. So as I was saying earlier too, that it is true. We can identify a particular wound in the body. And most of the time, our deeper wounds will exist in the first three chakras of the body. They're the hardest ones. They're the most dense consciousness in our body, is those first three chakras. And it does take work going into those areas of the body. But the crown chakra allows us to bring the frequency of divinity into the physical body. And when we do that, we start to open up more of an awareness of soul healing. So if I'm now shifting, so energy healing, I'll just make a distinction, is that we would breathe into where it lives in the body. And we would bring our consciousness there and we would breathe into that area of the body. And we might apply different techniques and tools to move the energy in that area of the body. Soul healing invites us to go deeper into even the past life around it, or the deeper consciousness around it. Now, not not everyone or every incident or situation or imprint requires going into a past life regression to clear the blocks. Sometimes it does, but sometimes we have to invite our breath and our awareness to include the history of the energy we're carrying. So, for example, if I know that I grew up in an environment where my boundaries were consistently crossed. So here I was, and this is a personal story that I'm sure many intuitives can relate to. I was a child in a family of 8 kids where what was normal and love and survival and grounding for me was that people constantly were yelling and screaming or projecting emotion all the way around all the time. And I was in that environment. So let's say I grow up in that environment where what's normal for me is that my boundaries will consistently be crossed. So here I am, an intuitive in the world, and my boundaries are consistently crossed. I'm picking up the energy of others. So let's say I want to clear that pattern in my being. And so I'm going to breathe into my root chakra and where I carry that imprint and the marinade of that family energy. Well, let's say the marinade of that family energy goes back much farther than my home life, my tribe. Let's say it goes back into my mom and how she grew up. And let's say it goes back even into my father when he grew up in the Depression with 8 kids and in his family, 7 kids in his family. And, there were no bedrooms. People just slept where they could. It's like I could go on and on in the story. But so here I am now going back through lineage energy. Or let's say I come into the world with that imprint that it's not okay for me to have my center or myself. Well, then at that point, my breath and my consciousness has to go deeper than the story of this lifetime. And I can do so just by breathing into that area of the body and seeing perhaps a visualization or a sense or a feeling of how far back that imprint is going. And this is the soul piece, is that the soul in me knows it's my work to overcome this. It's my work to not remain a victim or stay stuck in this pattern. It's my work to overcome and clear my boundaries, find my center, become more empowered. And so I'm going to hold both pieces. I'm going to breathe into clearing the lineage, letting it release out of my body, and I'm going to step into myself. I'm going to invite my soul to take a big step forward into my body and occupy that space. At that point, we increase more consciousness in that area of the body.
Well, I feel like you're just a fountain of these fascinating insights. So I want to direct all the subjects here. So what are some of the other things about working with the crown that you really want to bring forward in today's call?
Yes. So there are subtle caps on our crown chakra, and this is extremely common, and it's common in 2 different ways. One can be through parenting, meaning what the parents believe, which, if you think about it, even metaphorically, we're small children and they're bigger than us. Whatever they believe comes down through the crown of our head. They are our quote unquote God. They are our universe, parents. So sometimes if there are doubts and fears, there could be fantastic nurturing and loving and support for your spiritual development, but what if there isn't? What if there's doubt and fear and limitations on what's possible for you? That can remain a cap at the crown of your head. The other cap can be doctrine trauma. If we've been raised in a religion that is dogmatic in a way that is contrary to your true nature. So to be clear about this, the crown chakra is our pipeline to our funnel, a gateway to God, to source. And nothing should be in this pipeline, nor in the central channel of our body, but us or God and God, our divine nature. But things get in there all the time. If we've been rocked to the core, so to speak, what that means is that an energy imprint got in so deep, it got into the core pillar consciousness in the body. And it's our work to start moving that block out of the central pillar and then further out and further out and further out. At the crown chakra, if I'm carrying a belief or a doctrine that's put on me and it's not true to my nature, I'm holding some block or resistance to my innate divine flow. Even if you circle your way back to that doctrine later in life. I'll just give an example. If you were raised, Christian or religious, and you had your rebellion against it, and then you found your way back to the divine in your own way and found, what, actually, I do want to go back to those beliefs, those spiritual beliefs. Even if you found your own way, the point here with the crown chakra is for the crown chakra health. No one, not even me as a teacher, anyone else as a teacher, should be able to tell you how to have a relationship with the divine, with God. That is your own subjective experience and journey here. So you get to define for yourself what God is for you, or what the divine is for you, or what flow is for you, what abundance and love and grace and fulfillment is for you. That's all your own personal spiritual journey. And sometimes we do have to clear off what's been adopted in our energy system in order for us to get clear on what our truth is. And so these caps on the crown chakra oftentimes do have to come off in order for us to get more vibrant and more powerful in our ability to manifest and create more abundance and flow in our life, simply through trust and faith in what is true and innate for us individually.
Working with these caps is similar to what you were talking about before, where work, is kind of moving into your back body and praying for the flow of. Maybe share a little bit more about the practices you might use if you've got some either personal, familial, or doctrinal kind of caps.
So prana moves in different ways through the body. Prana being life force energy. And sometimes I might recommend people exhale to release energy down their grounding cord. The goal is that you are releasing it. You're giving the energy an exit. The crown chakra, most of the time, the energy needs to go up, back, up, like we lift, like it's being vacuumed up or being lifted up. Sometimes I like to think of it as, the light comes down to whatever that block might be, and that it's like lifting it up like steam evaporating off a lake, or a sort of a claw picking, like a divine hand pulling it up and out of your crown chakra. But it's going to come with a couple things. One is that we are leaning back into the backside of the body, and that we are envisioning the crown chakra open like a funnel, and that we're also identifying what the block may be that's there. Is it a doctrine trauma? Is it a negative belief like you can't have? You can't have. That's a big one with lack, or even undervalued, under earning. You just can't have. It's not okay to have. And that's often a wound at the crown chakra area of the body, that we start to imagine it, picture it, visualize it, maybe just feel it or sense it. And then call light down, invite the light of grace to come through. Take it out of your own personal effort in needing to do it. Just ask for prayer, ask for the light to come down and lift this block and take it back to source. Ask for it to dissolve. Ask for it to be transformed in the light. Clear it for you, clear it for your family, clear it for your children and their children, clear it for all space, time, and dimension. I'm ready to let this lift out of my being so I can open up to my optimum, true, highest nature, my true self.
Let's talk a little bit about just kind of daily practices too. So there's sort of special interventions that we might do, and then there's also the just daily practice of cleansing and opening. Maybe share a little bit about establishing a foundation in that to help our crown chakra really be at optimum performance.
You know, quite honestly, meditation is probably one of the most powerful practices for the crown chakra. It's that and I'll just explain why that is. In meditation, when we're taking a seat in meditation and we're coming into stillness, it sometimes does take 10 minutes for the body to slow down. And then we can start to, in that process, we can start to ground our energy down. And so there's a natural flow of prana, of life force energy that's downward flowing. It's called apanavayu. It's a downward force of prana. When the downward force of prana is moving down and we're settling down into ourselves, then all the power centers can come into balance. The body relaxes, the nervous system relaxes, the mind relaxes, everything settles. And sometimes it takes a good, 10 to 15 minutes for that to happen. When the body starts to settle, at that point, the crown chakra and the upper chakras will start to activate and life force will start to flow innately through the back body. But we have to be okay coming into that stillness and giving it the time for the energy system to activate as the nervous system settles. Otherwise, what will happen is that if we don't have these grounding practices like visualizing the grounding cord or taking 20 minutes to meditate, that the apana force will reverse. It will go up. And when it starts to go up, then the stomach, the prana in the stomach area will start to race. The heart will spin. The rise of prana comes up. There's names for each of these, which we can go into another time. But prana starts flowing up and out through the throat, and the head starts to race. So the wind in the body starts to become very erratic. So when we're meditating, it's not necessarily to calm the mind, it's to calm the wind in the body, all the movement that's going on in the body. So that's the main practice I would recommend, is that there is, a 20-minute meditation every day, even if you have to wake up 20 minutes early. Start with 5 minutes, I'll tell you, sometimes it takes a good 10 minutes for the body to settle. So sometimes 5 or 10 minutes won't be enough, but it's enough to start. And then grounding through the grounding cord, as I mentioned earlier. And then very simply, you can imagine that your crown chakra is open to grace. I am open to the flow of grace. I close my eyes a lot to visualize that, but if you can imagine that this beautiful grace flows through your body, and that you might even soften the muscles in your system and just allow your body to move with that flow of grace, somewhat like a dancer would move, just to kind of get it moving through your body, and to be with that practice of flow, because it softens the mind and the nervous system, and it starts to get prana moving through the chakras. So that would be a great place to start.
I had one other question I thought would be good. You mentioned that growing up, you had a lot of essentially invasion of your boundaries, and that was part of what drove you a bit over the edge in different ways. And so as we're doing more of this energetic work, just share a little bit about how do we kind of reset our energetic boundaries so that we're not being invaded by other people.
My short answer is radiance. So we pick up energy from around us when we are not fully stepped into ourselves. And why that happens is that we go through life experiences where the soul may move slightly to the left or right, or move out of the central channel, or move somewhere in our body to compensate for what might feel like impact in the energy system. And it becomes, the deeper answer is that it becomes our work to clear those blocks, to allow self to step more fully into the center of the being and to radiate self more. But that it is a process. It's a process to unwind those imprints in the body. What we are working towards is that well, say this, when we do vacate the body, we become susceptible. So if I'm in my second chakra, for example, which is a very feminine and intuitive power center for both men and women, and I'm not allowed to have my feelings, or I don't feel comfortable expressing my feelings, I'm not going to be in my power in my second chakra. Instead, I'm going to make space for everybody else's emotions. I'm going to absorb all their stuff. So what do I get to do? I get to have my anger. I get to have my emotion. I get to step into myself and say, no, that's not okay. I get to have boundaries. And sometimes vocal boundaries help. And sometimes it's just a matter of stepping into our central channel and radiating the presence of our light outward so that we are not absorbing in. So the only reason we absorb energy in is because there's something inside us that is making space for that energy to come into the body. So it becomes our work to expand more of us out.
But it also takes us a little bit out of the more defensive psychology. It's like it's a projection outward of our inner light. I love it.
Yeah. So and also some, there's always a recommendation of putting purple light around the outside of the energy field, and that's a great tool that is a bit of a band-aid. Like it'll last a little while, but the deeper work is going to be about the radiance.
Great.
So yeah.
Well, Wendy, this has been absolutely illuminating. You have so many insights that I've taken intuitive development classes in the past, and I feel like you're opening my eyes to all kinds of new insights and possibilities, and what a blessing that is. So I'm really glad that this is not the end of the journey and that we have the opportunity to go still further with you. So let's take some time to talk about that for those of folks out there who are sitting there thinking, wow, this is really amazing information and want to go further. So we are doing a 16-week program with Wendy called The Next Level of Intuitive Healing. Open your upper chakras to access divine guidance and liberate your healing gifts. So the basic concept here, when we sat down with Wendy, is she wanted to do a program that was more advanced, that builds upon some basic intuitive skills, but really opens the upper chakras since they tend to get neglected. We get a lot of our attention and focus in the lower chakras, which is important, but this helps to balance it out and open up some of the higher octaves for you. So you can find this program laid out at intuitivehealingadvanced.com. Again, that's intuitivehealingadvanced.com. And it's a 16-week program. There are no prerequisites, but it's also going to cover a fair amount of advanced terrain. So it builds upon knowledge you might have gotten in Wendy's introductory program with Shift, or other things you might have studied elsewhere. But there is the opportunity to stay up to speed and really learn as you go, even if you haven't done a preliminary program. So this is for people who want to go deeper. This is for generally people who are further along on your path of growth and development. You might work professionally in certain ways as an intuitive. You might work in therapy as a coach or somewhere where intuition is valuable. I even say that intuition as a CEO is very, very central these days to high performance. So intuition is key for a lot of us now. And the program will take you into how to clear lineage wounds and conditioning, to transform energetic imprints, to connect with the divine through your upper chakras, heighten your awareness of the divine plan, and practices to channel in more love, abundance, and intuitive ability. So this is, this is for empaths, for sensitive people. It can also be if you've had challenges with your boundaries or taking on other people's emotions or energies, or even for people who have sometimes had a challenge identifying your true calling or reaching your full earning potential for that matter. So Wendy, I'd love for you to share in your own words what it is you're going to be teaching people in this 16-week adventure with intuitive healing.
Sounds great. So I want to also let you know first is that I really sat with my own divine connection around this program. And one of the gifts that I have is the ability to really connect to spirit and to download information and opportunities and healing opportunities, and I stay really in tuned with what I believe people might benefit people, but also what comes through me for people. So it's very spirit led, very guided, this whole process. And so I'll explain the program. It's a very much a deep healing experience. I mean, we are going into the areas of the energetic system where the mind can't necessarily access. I mean, we can, but we're going into deep subconscious healing in the body to identify where the body might have been blocked, but that the imprints are deeper than this lifetime. So, and essentially, we're moving into soul healing. What have you come into this life with and carrying? And the program begins with module 1 is the opening the gateway to divine healing so your body can heal. And in this module, we make that transition from energy healing into soul healing by opening up the consciousness in the crown chakra, including healing any blocks. We talked about the doctrine traumas, or even the limitations, the caps on the crown chakra. But also we're working with the root chakra and developing more sense of self and trust. And I mentioned this in the beginning of the call. I'm not really the energy healer that's going to jump to the upper chakras. I'm absolutely going to care and stay in tuned with with each of us being very embodied in our body and working with the lower chakras, but from a spiritual upper chakra perspective. So it's very important because I don't want to ever promote a spiritual bypassing of what's going on in the lower body. We're absolutely staying in tuned and addressing both upper and lower. But the process here is now to start getting the spirit involved in your healing process, your spirit. So it's opening the backsides of the upper chakras, the flow through the energy system. And each call, or I guess 2 weeks out of each module, are going to be deep guided healings. And I attune to the frequency of the collective and what's needed, and facilitate the healing that your system needs. And it's always at that deeper level. And everyone always comes out of it saying, I can't believe that wasn't just for me. You know, it's a very deep guided healing into the energy system. Module 2 is the back body consciousness and clearing the karma held in your soul. So this is where we start to look at the karmic patterns in the body. So lack of love, lack of just lack or victimhood, also clearing unworthiness, opening the body up to abundance, which is really flow of grace, flow of love throughout the system, that your needs are met, that you're felt filled up. We're also working with clearing some traumas in the body, because trauma holds in the energy system pretty deep, and we want to work through clearing out trauma held in the system, so that, again, more divine energy can flow. Module 3 is allowing the mystical experience and communication with the divine. So once we've gone through this process of the previous modules, module 1 and 2, about healing and clearing in the body, then there's space for the spirit to activate with more vibrancy. And at that point, the pathways of flow in the body are more open for divine communication, which is connection to your higher self, to grace, and to spirit guides and angels. And this is the module where we're going to dive in more deeply into who spirit guides are, what they are, and what angels are, and how they're actually different, and what might be helpful to know about each of them, and how they can help you in your personal healing and your growth. So this is a deeper dive into divine communication. And then the final module is living in flow through divine infusion. So now that you've been expanding, once we connect to spirit guides and angels, and we're living in more of that vibration and frequency, where we expand energetically, there's more space in your system for divine infusion, and that allows you to be in more faith and connection with how spirit guides and angels can help your healing. also you'll be given practices on how to work with, I say prayer, but prayer is divine communication, and how to activate that channel of grace in your body. And then you're also going to experience a soul activation, which is when the soul is infused with divine frequency and love, and how your soul takes that into the cells of your body, and that you start to have deep soul shifts on the soul level that then start to animate and activate in your human self, in your present day self. And then we complete with an integration, and how we live this practice as householders, the householder path of living divinely connected and whole and grounded in who we are as spiritual beings. Now, I really believe this for people who might be intuitive in the world, that we've had to live in the closet for so long around gifts, around intuitive gifts, but they are absolutely senses. They're some of the most innate inborn senses that we have even when we're in the womb. But other senses get more emphasized than being intuitive does. And so we have to kind of relearn, unblock and clear and make space for the energy system, the intuitive system, to be grounded and to have permission really to be. And so this course overall, going through it, is going to increase your intuition, your ability to be grounded in your body as a spiritual being, but also it's going to help you with your soul expanding in yourself, which helps with your energetic boundaries.
Wendy, it sounds like an absolutely fantastic program. I'm so pleased that we're able to offer this with you. And I'll just bring people's attention to a few other things. Again, you can see the whole program laid out at intuitivehealingadvanced.com. Again, that's intuitivehealingadvanced.com. And it's going to be on Thursdays at noon Pacific time. And even if you can't make the live session, you can still get the full value. You're going to get the sessions with the normal class sessions, 12 of those, as well as the 4 integration sessions. We're going to focus more specifically on your personal integration. Then there's a Facebook Live Q&As. There's small group practices. You've got stuff that exercises to do at home, recordings, PDF transcripts, and you've got some amazing extra bonuses. You've got a video from Wendy called 3 Steps on How to Clear Your Own Energy. There's also another video meditation from her called Grounding as the Heart Expands, and an ebook called Expanding Your Heart, 4 Stages of Spiritual Openings. And actually keeps going. Transform, the set of 6 powerful guided audio meditations called Transform Through Emotional Healing, Release Emotions from the Past. And we also have an extra bonus, which is available today only. This is an ebook with 7 audio recordings, a very robust extra bonus called Energy Healing Through the Chakras, a guide to self-healing. Wendy, you want to share anything about that ebook and 7 recordings?
Yes. So this particular ebook is a guide for self-healing. So if you are interested in identifying where you might be blocked in which chakras, or you'd like a basic introduction to the chakras, but would also like to dive deeper into healing in those areas, in those chakras, then the audio meditations, and you read a chapter about the chakra, and then you put on your guided meditation, and it will take you through a deep journey through that particular chakra to unblock and clear and bring consciousness to that area of the body for healing.
That's a fantastic extra bonus, Wendy, and a lot of value just in that alone. So that's I would encourage you to go to the page at intuitivehealingadvanced.com and give it a read today. So you give it a read, tune in with your own knowing, and if you get a yes, then you have this extra great incentive, which is the Energy Healing Through the Chakras series of ebook and audio recordings when you sign up today by midnight. Well, this is an amazing program, and we're super grateful to be partnered with you on it. And so, again, you get this entire program. It starts on January 25th, runs on Thursdays, and it's got all the extra bonuses, all the time with Wendy, and a lot of extra time with groups. It really is going to create a sangha or a spiritual community to go deeper into this material and really learn skills that can last a lifetime. this is in the category of courses that aren't just temporary inspiration, but really help you build capacity to enhance your energy, to clear out whatever old challenges or traumas you have, to set your boundaries, to connect with higher guidance, to really establish a higher baseline for your life. So it's a great gift to give yourself, and I encourage you to go for it if you are feeling at all moved. So again, you can find all the details at intuitivehealingadvanced.com. And we've kept the investment very accessible. It's just 4 payments of $189, so you save about 10% when you pay in full at $697. So again, that's all at intuitivehealingadvanced.com. Well, Wendy, we're right at the end of our time together. What a great hour. Fascinating insights. You're an amazing teacher. Anything that's still on your heart you want to share with folks who are considering joining you for the next level of intuitive healing?
Just that I'm really looking forward to holding this process for you. I think it's just a blessing to be able to have a support, a teacher who can help guide you into this experience of going into your subconscious and where you might be holding blocks on the deeper level, but doing it in a 4-month process. It's just it's a powerful container, and I look forward to supporting you in that journey.
I encourage you to go to the page at intuitivehealingadvanced.com right away. Tune in, read it all. I encourage read through the testimonials as well. There's things like this course is one of the best things I participated in. That was just the intro program. So we're going to go deep and really get some amazing information from Wendy in this program and really catalyze your healing and transformation and awakening. So again, intuitivehealingadvanced.com, and you get the extra bonus of the energy healing through the chakras when you sign up today by midnight. So hope to see you in the program, and thank you all for coming. And thank you, Wendy, for a beautiful hour.
Thank you so much, Stephen.